Hey guys, this looks like a fun one. This t-shirt says I'm square root of 1 plus tangent squared c, and I know it. I'm thinking there's a hidden message in here. First thing I'm noticing, it has a tangent of c in there, so that's expressed as tan c. Tan c is a trig function that's equal to sine c over cosine c. But what is sine c? What is cosine c? I think the best way to introduce these is with the right triangle. Let's call this angle c. And let's label the side opposite of C opposite, the side adjacent to C adjacent, and then the last side opposite the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse. Sine, cosine, and tangent are all ratios of relationships in this triangle. The sine of this angle C is the opposite over hypotenuse, the cosine of C is the adjacent over hypotenuse, and the tangent of C is the opposite over adjacent. So these are the first three trig functions. There are three more. There's cosecant of C, secant of C, and cotangent of C. These are the reciprocals of these ones. So for cosecant of C, we're going to flip signs. So instead of opposite over hypotenuse, it'll be hypotenuse over opposite. And same thing, secant of C is hypotenuse over adjacent, and cotangent of C is adjacent over opposite. So these are all 6 of the trig functions and their corresponding relationship in this triangle. And since this is a right triangle, we got to do Pythagorean theorem. It's going to be adjacent squared plus opposite squared equals hypotenuse squared. This all looks important. Let's put a box around it. And this should be all that we need to figure out what this is saying. Let's focus on this tangent squared of C. This is just a special notation that means tangent C whole thing squared. The reason they don't write it like this, tangent of C squared, is because people might think it means tangent of C squared. But we don't want just the c to be squared, we want the entire tangent to be squared. So we write it like this. And now in the place of this tangent squared c, let's plug in tangent c squared. Next, let's focus on just the tangent c. And we have notes for tangent c down here, so let's pull that up. Tangent c is equal to opposite over adjacent. So in the place of this tangent c, let's plug in opposite over adjacent. And then next, let's focus on this whole thing. If you have a fraction that's being squared, that's the same thing as squaring the top and the bottom. So we can rewrite opposite over adjacent squared as opposite squared over adjacent squared. And let's change that here. Now we're trying to add a number to a fraction. The best way to do that is to give it a common denominator. So we can change this 1 into adjacent squared over adjacent squared. And now we have 2 fractions with a common denominator. We can express that as a single fraction with that same denominator. This changed into adjacent squared plus opposite squared over adjacent squared. So this adjacent squared plus opposite squared, that looks familiar. We have that down here in our Pythagorean theorem. Let's bring it up here. Adjacent squared plus opposite squared is equal to hypotenuse squared. That came from the Pythagorean theorem of this triangle. So in the place of adjacent squared plus opposite squared, let's plug in hypotenuse squared. So now we have square root of hypotenuse squared over adjacent squared. We have a fraction where the top is being squared and the bottom is being squared. That's the same thing as the whole fraction being squared. So we can rewrite this as hypotenuse over adjacent whole thing squared. And now we have a single term squared inside of a square root. This square root and this square can cancel each other out. The square root of 1 plus tangent squared c is the same thing as hypotenuse over adjacent. So we have I'm hypotenuse over adjacent and I know it. But we're not fully simplified yet. If we look at our notes, hypotenuse over adjacent is equal to secant c. So we can change this hypotenuse over adjacent to secant c. And now we've solved the riddle of the t-shirt. Instead of I'm square root of 1 plus tangent squared c and I know it, it's actually I'm secant c and I know it. The shirt's funny because they didn't fully simplify it. How exciting.